Yo, what's up YouTube? It's Kevin Clue and I am back with another video today. So today on this channel I want to talk about trendline strategy, how to draw your trend line and how to use trendline to make some profits from the market. But before we get right into this video, make sure you comment, you like, you subscribe and you share. So yeah, let's get in. Let's get right into the video, and today we'll be talking about the trendline strategy, how to draw the trend lines and how to use trend lines to make profit from the market. So now let's see on Chrome. So I checked trend lines in trading. What is trend line trading? According to Google, trend line trading is a strategy that uses straight line to identify the direction of a price movement, that is the trend of the market, by connecting a series of price points, either highs or lows on the chart. And according to Google, traders will use these lines as a visual guide to anticipate where price might find support or resistance, and you make your decisions based on the bounce or the break of that trend line, which is correct. And it helps you to identify potential entry and exit in both uptrends and downtrends. So this trendline strategy basically only works when the market is moving in a particular direction. It's either the market is going up or it is going down. So basically, let me look for one pair right now, because I trade jump 10 index, jump 25 index, V25 index, D25S index, and volatility 51S index. So let me see if I can pick up a trend from any of this and use an example. Let me see. Let me use what the market right now is. Yeah, let me go to the, let's see, 4-hour time frame. Yeah, this is it. So now right now on the 4-hour time frame on jump 25 index, you can see the market is on an uptrend. So basically, and this is basically just a straight line. For a buy market, let's say the market is bullish, how do you draw the trend line? First of all, you need to identify the lows of that bullish trend. If the market is selling, you need to identify the highs, that's the recent highs and the recent lows. So now let me show you how to draw this trend line. On your MT5, you go to this, there's some objects too, you get this tool here, which is basically trend line. For example, for your buy, you connect the, let me go to 1-hour time frame. Like I said, for your buy, you connect the recent lows, right? So let's use one as an example. Okay, for example, let's look at the old lows. For example, this is a low. You can see this is a low. This one is a low. What's the next low? The next low is at this point here. This is the next low. So you have to draw it in a way to connect. So let me draw it well. Put this one here. Yeah, this is how you do it. You have to draw it in a way that the market will connect. Yeah, it's basically something like this. Yeah, the way market will connect. For me personally, how I do this strategy is that a trend forms after, or a trend line forms after two consecutive higher highs or higher lows. For example, the market is buying, the market needs to do this. Or can I get this too? Yeah, let me use the arrow. The market needs to do this for me to really identify, for you to tell me that yes, the market is buying. First of all, I need to have a low. Then what will happen again? I'll have another low. Yep. Then I'll have a second low, which is this one. So once I've gotten my first low, I've gotten my second low, I anticipate for the third low. But market will first go high again before coming back to do another low. I placed a mistake. I mistakenly placed that in the wrong place. So let me draw this one again. Yeah, so this is where I usually be anticipating on the third low, and this is where I get that information to buy, and this is how I usually catch my sniper entries. So yeah, this is 30 minutes. So this is how basically you can use this trend line strategy to make money, basically like that. Then let me look for if the market is selling. Let me look for the market has been buying recently these days. Okay, I've seen one right now. Okay, if the market is selling, you need to identify the previous and the recent highs of the market. Basically, that's where you need to target. For example, now this was the first high, and this was the second high. So usually you will be, this was the first high, let me delete this one. So this is the first high, somewhere there. Although this is not a perfect example of what I'm just showing you, because I really don't have none of the chart that I look at right now on a downtrend. This is second high. Then the third high will definitely be somewhere around here. So basically, it's just what this strategy is just telling you that you should be expecting a sort of move around this area. You should be expecting a sort of move around this area, and you can believe the way market came here, it did sell. Market came here, it did drop, but this on this particular pair, market is really buying. So this is just a minor downtrend, basically. It's just a minor downtrend. So let me look at another pair. Let me look at Jump 10 index and you see. Let's go to this one is still on the buy too. Okay, you can see the market is buying ahead. Like I've drawn this trend line now. So what I'm anticipating right now, like I said, you need two lows. We have our first low here. Then the second low is here. Then I am now waiting for another low to touch this trend line. So what I'm waiting for the market to do as at now is to come down to this trend line. Immediately comes down to this trend line, I am expecting a buy. And basically that's how the trend line strategy works. It is not too fancy. You're just usually using this as basically a support and a resistance too. And if you come here too, let's say for using resistance and support, if you come here too, you notice that this is a former resistance zone. So you can see the market is now coming to drop. Market is now coming to retest to this former resistance, and this former resistance will now become a support, which will now make this buy. So basically that's how the strategy works, basically. So now I've really explained how it is when the trend line is bouncing, when you're just trading the bounce. But there are sometimes when you trade the break. What do I mean by the break? For example, it's gonna take a lot of time to delete all this. Yeah, for example, this is Jump 10. Market was selling before. We need to first of all identify the previous high and the recent high too. For example, look at this now. Yeah, this is a clear example. Like you need at least two. Market will touch this trend line to bounce off this trend line 2 times before you enter. So for example, now you can see at this region, market didn't sell. Market was supposed to sell at this point, but it didn't sell. So now market has now broken. Anytime if market was selling and you use a trend line and it was working perfectly fine and it breaks that trend line, it is at least 60-70% sure that trend is about to stop. That is, if it was selling before, like this scenario, it was selling before, now it's about to buy. So this is what we now call trend line break. Although what people would do when the market breaks, when their trend line breaks, they wait for it to do a break and retest. That is, market will come. Let me draw it basically. So I don't want to make this video too long. Market will break, then it will come back to this trend line, then it will now break. And this is how people use the trend line strategy. Although this is just a simpler version, I don't want to make this too complicated, but this is basically how people use, or how the trend line strategy makes me at least some profits, basically. So what you need to do in the trend line strategy is, first of all, you need to identify the trend of the market. That is it a buy trend or is it a sell trend? And you need to know that when using this trend line strategy, it only works with trend. You cannot trade this or use this particular strategy when the market is just stagnant, when it's consolidating. No, you can't do that, basically. First of all, you need to identify your trend, the trend of the market, the current trend. Is it buying or is it selling? Second, you need to identify your your previous high or your previous lows or your recent lows, then you wait for the third touch of that trend line, the third touch or the third bounce. That's when you get in. If it's on the if you are looking for a break, what you do, you just wait for it to break, wait for it to retest, and you get in. So basically that's how I use this trend line strategy to basically make some profits. But I want to show you a scenario that happened to me a few moments ago. Let me go on a 15 minutes time frame. This is a perfect distance. So from here, you can clear. First of all, let's identify the current market structure. Right now, market is buying. We need to identify since buying, we need to look for the lows, the previous low and the recent low. So let's do that right now. So we have the previous low here. I hope I'm seeing all these terminologies right. Then we have this was the previous low, this is the recent low. Then now we're looking for the next low. So now let's draw our trend lines now. Just behave as if this part hasn't been there, but let's make sure we make sure they align. Let's look for the low. Make sure they are. Let me remove this one so you can see clearly. Yeah, make sure they touch and just draw it. So there was something that happened to me here basically. So sometimes basically, I said in this particular market, in this particular scenario, I will want to buy at this level. Immediately market touched the trend line, I bought. Immediately market got here, I bought. Market went up, all of a sudden it just dropped before it finally went up. There are some scenarios or times whereby the market won't buy at that specific touch of the trend line. Market might drop a little bit before it goes up, which is understandable. But if you know this concept, you know that this thing works at least 60 to 70% of the time. So basically that's how the trend line strategy works, and I hope you try it, and make sure you let me know in the comments how the strategy went. So make sure you like, you comment, and you subscribe. So yeah, thank you.